Welcome to the Fantasy 40 podcast with your host, John Dabari.
I can beat the shit out of Hollywood Brown if you'd like.
Matt Walker.
Like the DK Metcalf of running back.
And Andrew Berg.
I love Hakeem Butler, actually. He's starting to grow on me.
Remember to like, rate, subscribe on Podbean, iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify. Follow the guys on Twitter at the Fantasy 40. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Fantasy 40 podcast. We are back. Myself, Andrew Burke, John Dabari, and Matt Walker. We're finally done with the all 32, so now we can get to some meat, potatoes, steak, whatever you want to call it. We're getting ready for the regular season. A lot of redraft leagues probably going to be drafting this weekend, next weekend, and then games kick off the following Thursday. So we're looking forward to finally getting out of that, talking about some shit teams that we usually don't ever talk about, and actually talking about some guys that we like and some guys that we hate. But first of all, we just want to thank our partners over at the Full-Time Fantasy Network. You guys hear us talk about it all the time. Make sure you go there, check it out. They're on Twitter as well. Go give them a follow. Plenty of stuff to see. They just got partners with Sports Illustrated, got big things going. Walk, what's kind of like the premise, or what are we calling this show? I'm pretty excited.
Well, let's start with putting that all 32 to bed. I agree. Anyone that liked that series as it's regressed from us doing every team to every division, I don't think we're doing it anymore. I think time has come. So we're going to move forward with the 2019 Redraft Primer edition of the Fantasy 40. We talk a lot of Dynasty here, but we do dive into Redraft when the season permits. So this is going to be Redraft focus. We're talking about 2019 and 2019 alone.
Yeah, and we got our boy John with us too. What are you ready to switch gears, John?
Hi. Yeah, I'm in the middle of redraft season. This kind of week 3 to the kickoff is my typical draft season for redraft. Actually cut down on redraft leagues this year, but I think I've had a draft the last 4 days in a row, and then tonight is my last one. But yeah, it's fun because you're not committed long term. We had mentioned earlier off the air, you could take a few risks you don't normally take and have a little more fun with it. Whereas Dynasty, if you make a mistake, you're kind of stuck living with that for the next 5 to 10 years.
It's very true. Mindsets are totally different. Take risks. You want sure things in Dynasty, and I'll take all the risks in redraft.
Yeah, and especially, we've talked about it before. We're in a ton of leagues, a ton of dynos, so you can have more fun with these redraft leagues and not really, I don't want to say not care, but you had mentioned earlier, like, I don't have any, whatever, Marquise Brown. I'll take a little Hollywood Brown. And then if
redraft has become much more fun as my focus has shifted to Dynasty.
Yeah.
I'll admit it. Because I used to be an all redraft guy before I got into Dynasty. Now I'm an all Dynasty guy. So redraft is just like, it's enjoyable. It's like, listen, I spent so much time and energy on Dynasty and trying to put these awesome long standing teams together. Redraft's like, I just get to draft guys for this year.
Stress free.
Yeah, you kidding? Sign me up.
Yep. I mean, I was once only just like you guys, all redraft, and now I don't even think about it. And it just seems a little easier now. You get a little more knowledge, not reaching for rookies I don't know anything about like back in the day, but it's fun. I'm ready, Walk. So I'm going to hand over the reins. This is going to be all you this time. Go ahead.
All right. This happened once before, and I don't think it went very well, but I'm going to try. So as in the host chair, I put together quick kind of topical questions. We're just going to start on the rookies because we still love rookies. So we're going to say what these rookies mean in 2019. So pose a question to the fellows of who will be the top scoring rookie running back in 2019? For everything, we're going to assume PPR scoring because that's most likely what our leagues are in, or at least half PPR. Most people don't play in the old standards anymore. So assuming PPR, John, who will be the top scoring rookie running back in 2019?
It's going to pain me to say this, but I'm going with Josh Jacobs, based solely on, running backs a volume position. The Raiders put Doug Martin on injured reserve and are supposedly releasing him too. So that was his main competition for carries anyway. He's still going to have some competition for receiving with Jalen Richard, but he's going to get the volume. The Raiders are going to give him every chance to succeed or fail, and volume is the king here. So, David Montgomery and Miles Sanders and some of these other rookies that picked up some hype in the offseason think that they're still going to be fantasy viable. But unless Jacobs is horrific, he should volume his way into at least a top 15 finish.
That was funny. I was going to ask you, put you to fire. Top 5, top 10, top 15, or top 20, assuming health. So you're saying top 15.
I'll go 15.
Okay, so high-end RB2. Burke, top scoring rookie running back.
I mean, I don't want to just go chalk with you guys because I know you're already on Josh Jacobs, but I'm going to actually go with your favorite team. I like Miles Sanders. I pretty much own him in Dynasty and Redraft in both spots. Anywhere I could. I just think the talent's there. Yeah, Jordan Howard's there, and then they got a plethora of, Darren Sproles, all those other guys, Clement, still in the backfield. But I just what I've seen so far in the preseason and at Penn State, if Barkley wasn't ahead of him, I think he would have been a little more highly touted coming out of college because he is athletic, big body, got a little wiggle to him, and his first nickname is Booby. So give me all that Miles Sanders, and I think I'll say top 15. Number 15, though.
Listen, I forget what it was. It's been like the last 3 or 4 years where a rookie running back has finished as an RB1. And Josh Jacobs, it will be an RB1 this year. He's going to be in the top 12. This offense and John Gruden support volume. John, you said volume is king. I agree. Josh Jacobs will easily exceed 250 carries and 50 catches this year, assuming health, and 300 touches in any offense. He's going. Just look at what David Johnson did last year.
50's a lot.
I'm there. I mean, 16 games. What's that? 3 a game? I don't think that's asking for that much out of Jacobs. I'm not worried about Jalen Richard. I'm not worried about DeAndre Washington. Josh Jacobs was brought in the draft as a first-round running back. He is going to get the brakes beat off of him for the contract with John Gruden. So he's going to have to drag Jacobs off the field. So I'm there. I think Josh Jacobs will be the rookie RB1 this year. So Burke, I appreciate that you went the Sanders route. I agree with you. I think he has already taken Jordan Howard's job. I think he'll get the majority of the running back work this year. I do think some of those other backs, Darren Sproles, and to a lesser degree, Corey Clement will eat into a little bit of that passing down work. So I think his upside this year is capped a little bit. I do not think Jordan Howard will be back after this season because they're certainly not going to pay him. Miles Sanders, is in Dynasty. His star is rising. I'm there. I think Miles Sanders is going to be a superstar, especially in that offense.
I'll tell you what, I already like this game because there's not really a correct answer, so I don't have to feel so bad.
There is not yet, but we will be going back at the end of the season and seeing where we all end up here. So there will be a correct answer. But moving on. And we're not going to go with quarterback because the only quarterback that's going to see viable snaps in his rookie season is Kyler Murray. So to not put him would be stupid. Oh, listen, Daniel Jones and Dwayne Haskins are all going to start 8+ games, potentially. But Kyler Murray's starting 16. So he wins by default. And he would score the most points regardless if they all played 16. So moving on. We're going to that wide receiver position. Usually takes a while to develop. So we're going to have to temper expectations here. Who will be the top scoring rookie wide receiver in 2019? Shout out to Star Wars. Top scoring rookie wide receiver in 2019. Burke.
All right. Well, my answer would have been Paris Campbell, but we all know that Andrew Luck is no more. Jacoby Brissett, I just don't see it. I see him maybe completing 20 passes a game, maybe 3 to Paris Campbell. So I'm going to have to stay in Philly, dude. He's getting a lot of hype. JJ Arcega-Whiteside. John corrected me last week's show.
Not me.
That was me.
All right.
Portuguese.
So I have to say it with a lisp, I guess, if you're Portuguese. So big body guy coming out of Stanford. I wasn't too big on him coming out. But now that I'm seeing what he's doing, I'm on that hype train. Alshon Jeffrey's good to miss 4 to 6 games this year. Not that I want him to get hurt, but it's just, inevitable. So, man, I can't believe it. Give me another Philly guy. I think he could be a 60 to 75 catch guy. Give me 6 touchdowns and maybe 800 yards. And that's not a bad rookie year there.
Boy, I'm really liking how this is going for me.
Big Philly show from the Cowboys fan.
Yeah.
John, where did you land? Because I know you're not going with Arcega-Whiteside.
Yeah, you gave us a list of options here. Marquise Brown, who I think sucks. I think Miles Boykin is the better of the two in Baltimore. Deebo Samuel, who I do love, but I think that Niners team is dog shit. Paris Campbell is nothing now without luck. A.J. Brown is in hell in Tennessee. DK Metcalf, who I am a established hater of, and he's injured. I love Arcega-Whiteside. I got quite a few shares of him in Dynasty, but I don't think this is going to be the year for him, even though I think he's going to score quite a few touchdowns. So that left me with guys like Andy Isabella and my man Terry McLaurin. But I kind of am going off the rails completely here. We mentioned him on a previous episode. In PPR, I would not be shocked if John Ursua of the Seahawks ends up with the most fantasy points among rookie wide receivers.
No one saw that coming. John went
going deep.
John Ursua, who is, I believe, 27 years old, out of Hawaii. So he's already been in the league for 5 years. We just didn't know it. So top scoring rookie wide receiver, Seattle Seahawks, third receiver. Was he drafted? He was a seventh rounder, right?
So they traded back in to get him.
That's what I thought. So the third receiver that they took in this draft, John believes will be the top scoring rookie. So
25, I'll have you know.
25. When's his birthday?
He'll be 26 by the time the Super Bowl comes around.
There you go. 26 season. So it was 1 year off for this guy. And Seattle won't be in the Super Bowl, so he won't be celebrating his birthday there.
Correct.
But, all right. I went with the aforementioned Deebo Samuel. I think there's an opportunity for him to be the wide receiver one in Mike Shanahan's offense as soon as this year, if he can stay on the field. I'm not a Dante Pettis hater, but I think Pettis is a perfect complement receiver. I think Deebo Samuel can be that alpha in this offense, and we all know what that yields. That's Andre Johnson, that's Pierre Garçon, that's Deebo Samuel. Stays on the field, he will be the top scoring rookie wide receiver this year. He is he's got the opportunity for it, and I think that he has the talent for it as well. So we went with Arcega-Whiteside, John Ursua off the board, and Deebo Samuel for the three of us. So interesting to see how that turns out. Lastly,
I think 2 out of 3 can happen.
Listen, John's thrown darts before, and they've hit. So I'm not going to rule him out, and I do think if he can play the slot in Seattle, we know what that means. That can be Doug Baldwin light. So very interesting. I haven't heard anything about Ursua in the preseason, though. So I would love to be wrong there, John. Moving to tight end. Oh, no. How I feel about the tight end position. So, come correct here. Who will be the top scoring rookie tight end in 2019? There was only 3 of note, but you can always go off the board. Hockenson, Fant, or Irv Smith Jr.?
I'll just go chalk. You got to go with Hockenson. They already seem to be using him quite a bit in the preseason. Fant as well, but like you said, he's not a good blocker. So I have to go Hockenson. Draft capital is there. But I'm still in redraft formats and not really too excited about taking a rookie in a redraft format. But that's who my guy is.
John, I know who you're going to say, but you can say it.
Noah Fant.
Correct.
And I went Noah Fant because Denver is obliterated with injuries at tight end. Jeff Heuerman is banged up. Troy Fumagalli is healthy, but he is a better blocker than pass catcher. Jake Butt, who I love, is also still kind of slowly coming back from his third ACL injury. There's literally no one else here. Fant is going to fall into the role whether he's ready for it or not. They just have no one else. They're just getting eaten alive by injuries.
Yeah, all salient points. I think there's 3 bona fide pass catchers above him, so I still think it's going to be slim pickings, but we do know that Flacco likes a tight end, so it could happen. I went with Hockenson as well. I had Hockenson as my top tight end even before the draft. He went as the top tight end taken in the draft. I don't like that he landed in Detroit, but this isn't the same old Detroit that tried to kill Eric Ebron's career. Hockenson is complete and can be on the field early and often. I think he'll be the top scorer. Another guy I don't want to go undiscussed is Irv Smith. And Burke, this is your guy. I'm not the biggest Irv Smith fan. I read something recently that he is going to be a target in this offense. They are going to feature him, quote unquote, in this offense. And I can see a world where he kind of acts as their de facto slot guy. And like almost 3 wide sets with Thielen and Diggs, because talk about no competition. That wide receiver room in Minnesota, John's talked about it in the All-32. If Chad Beebe is getting discussed as potentially being your wide receiver 3, Irv Smith's going to see the field a whole lot in his rookie season with Kyle Rudolph playing that inline role. So Irv Smith could be sneaky good even as early as his rookie year, if they just use him as a receiving tight end like they should. So
Hear me out. It's like a very, very, very poor man's Gronkowski and Aaron Hernandez. You got a big body because obviously Rudolph is not anywhere close near to Gronkowski, but Irv Smith's obviously not as fast as Aaron once was, but I think he is athletic and can make a lot of things happen. And I'm kind of glad you mentioned that work in the slot, because I could actually see that kind of happening,
When is he going to commit a double homicide?
Oh, shit, don't go there. I didn't say it. I did not say it.
Sorry, Irv. That just happened. You can't unhear it. But no, I agree. I think there's no one off the board, I think, is going to contribute early. Some of those guys that John made up early on that ended up being real people, and Josh Oliver and Kahale Warren have long-term dynasty value, but they're not doing shit this year. My boy Jay Sternberger is still blocked by Jimmy Graham, at least in 2019, and tight end largely takes time to develop. So I wouldn't be diving deep for a rookie tight end. There's too many veterans that I think can contribute, but I think all these guys in different ways have opportunity in the spots they landed in. So that was the rookie edition of the Redraft Primer. And now we are just going to move into our overall by positions. I posed a question to these fine gentlemen a few days ago to look into Fantasy Football Calculator's current PPR ADP and start mining for some value. So the questions are going to be by position, and we're going to start at the quarterback position. And as far as quarterbacks, first question is, which quarterback currently outside of the top 20 will finish as a top 10 quarterback in 2019? John, I'll let you go first.
This was a lot tougher than it sounded at first. I went with Matt Stafford. Stafford has done it before. I don't think he's going to, but he is probably the most likely to do so. I don't necessarily love their wide receiver core as a whole. I don't like the direction the team is going as far as run first. But Stafford has done it in the past, and he's, I would say, based on talent, is the most likely to do it again.
Stafford currently quarterback 25. The last one listed in 12-team leagues, being taken in the 14th round.
It's amazing.
Bert, sounds like you had a similar mindset based upon your reaction.
Yeah, I did, but let me see. There's 2 other guys I actually really like in the top 20. Josh Allen being one of them because of his rushing ability, but I'm going to go the guy ahead of Matt Stafford on kind of ride on something I mentioned earlier is Derek Carr. Like I said, it might be the Hard Knocks thing, but I think this is it. He either has to do it or he's done. He's not going to Vegas with the team. So I think he's ready to go this year, adding Antonio Brown since he's finally back and got a helmet on or whatever the freaking problem is there. I just really think it helps him. I think Antonio Brown is an upgrade from Amari Cooper if you exclude all the off-the-field stuff. Tight ends, they actually look pretty good there. And then Hunter Renfrow going to help him in the slot. I really think that guy's going to have a role, but I should have brought him up in the wide receivers. But old Tiny Hand's going to help Derek Carr out. That will be my guy.
Burke, you are correct. I also went with Derek Carr. And Derek Carr was quarterback 19 last year, and he pretty much had Jared Cook to throw to for the back half of the season. When they traded Amari Cooper, who was lightly utilized in most games when he was still an Oakland Raider, what was he throwing to? Seth Roberts? And I mean, there was nothing there. And he still cobbled together over 4,000 yards, which was 11th in the NFL, and a 19-10 touchdown ratio. Think what you want about Antonio Brown and him being past his prime. He's still the best receiver that Derek Carr's ever had to throw to. They added Tyrell Williams, who was a perfect complementary guy in this offense. And they still have tight ends. Darren Waller is getting a ton of pub. I do think the Carr likes the tight end, and I do think it's a big part of this offense. So he's going to get an opportunity there. And then they have pass-catching running backs. We talked about Josh Jacobs earlier in this podcast, and they have Jalen Richard behind him to fall back on. Derek Carr has his best receiving group that he's had in his NFL career, in my opinion. And that's going back to the Cooper and Crabtree days. I think Derek Carr can post a top 10 quarterback season. So, Bert, I'm right there with you.
All right. Sweet.
Now we're going with kind of the busts. Is who is inside the top 10 that will finish outside of the top 20. So, John, you were rolling and prepared, so we're going to go with you.
I love it. Getting into the hate. This was tough. Process elimination. So the top 10 quarterbacks right now, Mahomes, Watson, Rodgers, Mayfield, Matt Ryan, Wentz, Breeze, Goff, Cam Newton, and Russell Wilson. Outside of the top 20 is tough for any of these guys. I said either Wentz via injury, or how about my man Baker Mayfield? Just the Browns turn back into a pumpkin at midnight, man. Browns turn into the Browns. Mayfield sinks in his sophomore year. The whole team kind of falters because the Browns be the Browns.
I gotta be honest, Berg, before I turn it over to you. We all did this same exercise. I did not see John naming either two of those individuals, particularly the latter, because John is the biggest Baker Mayfield fan. So how can you just not put the Baker blinders on and be like, nah, that dude's range of outcomes is QB1 or QB2? That's what I expect.
I can set aside my feelings.
We can get there. All right. Andrew, you heard the top 10 list. Who in there is, let's not go with will finish, most likely to finish outside of the top 20? Let's be realistic.
Well, if he wasn't in McVay's system, I would say Jared Goff easy, but he's going to be schemed into touchdowns and yards. So it's the easy one for me would be Cam Newton. I don't see him really throwing the ball that much at all. They're a rushing team. Yes, DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel's getting a lot of love this offseason, but Cam's already a little bit banged up. It's nothing serious from what I hear, but I think he has the biggest chance, most likely, to finish back there.
All right. So, interestingly enough, we didn't go with any of the same guys. I went with Drew Brees. And not that I don't love me some Drew Brees. I think he is one of the best to ever do it. He still was amazing last year and posted a quarterback 8 season with a sterling 32-5 touchdown to interception ratio. Almost eclipsed 4,000 yards passing in only 15 games. I mean, the guy's special. He even gave you 4 touchdowns, even though he only had 22 yards rushing. I mean, Drew Brees is amazing, but I know they want to run the ball more. They've regressed year over year from this high-flying passing attack. Drew Brees only had 489 passing attempts last year. That is low for Drew Brees in 15 games. The emergence of Taysom Hill in these sub-packages I don't think is going away, and I think he's going to get some red zone work as well. This is the year that Drew Brees finishes outside the top 20 fantasy receivers. They're still going to be an amazing team, but I think the way that offense is constructed has changed. And so it was all different rationale. John and Andrew were injury specific of, who's likely to get hurt. I just think Drew Brees isn't going to be asked to do as much anymore, and he's still being taken in the top 10, which actually surprised me. I wouldn't think he'd be in the top 10. He's actually QB7 right now in fantasy football calculator ADP. So interesting.
Yeah.
Quarterback in one quarterback leagues, who really cares, right? Let's just move past that. Yeah. There's going to be more interesting debate with these remaining positions. So running backs, we went a little deeper. So we're talking about RB1s and RB2s here. So I said, which running back currently outside the top 24 will finish inside the top 12? Who is not currently being taken as an RB2 that will be an RB1 this season? Don't tell me injury is going to happen. Tell me the guy that you think is going to finish inside the top 12.
That one's easy for me. Right now, Austin Eckler has a good shot. That's who I'm going to roll with. Melvin Gordon, all signs point to not playing till week 8. They'll see what they got in Austin Eckler. Splitting time with Justin Jackson, I don't think it matters. It's not too far off. He's running back 29, taken in the 6th round, but I'm liking me some Eckler more and more and more. So that'll be my guy.
I have always been a long-term Eckler guy, but I think his ADP creeps up, especially by the time the season kicks off. So he probably isn't going to count. I went with someone I mentioned when we talked about the Saints and the all-32, and Walker mentioned them going a little more run-heavy this year. Latavius Murray. I think Latavius Murray has a shot at putting up RB1 numbers. I think Latavius Murray can do better than Mark Ingram in this team. Walker just mentioned he thinks the team as a whole is going to run more. I think Murray can catch. I think he can run between the tackles. He's been a decent back when he's been given a chance. But I think Latavius Murray on the Saints team can be an RB1 this year.
Yeah, I like them both, different reasons, but certainly well within the range of outcomes. And again, didn't take either of the two guys that I had written down. I had an alternative just in case, but I'm going to go with the more topical one at present, and it's Duke Johnson, who's currently at RB30. Nice. Talk about skyrocketing up draft boards. There is nothing else. And I do think they're bringing something in. I mean, we've heard Doug Martin. I think we've heard some Jay Ajayi. Like, there's going to be a veteran that they bring in, but that's not going to scare what they need to do in this offense. They're not going to trust the rookies. And outside of that, there's Josh Ferguson, who is just never going to happen, even though John and I want him to. And Buddy Howell, he looks very good. Yep. It's not
I have to call Donta Foreman back. Hey, we didn't mean to do that.
Yeah, IR, it's done.
Yeah, they're going to have to duct tape his forearm back on or whatever. He tore some muscle. But Duke Johnson at RB30, like John said with Eckler, that's going to skyrocket. He's easily going to be in the RB2 conversation in PPR by the next update on Fantasy Football Calculator. But as a flex running back in PPR leagues, he can be the James White type guy from last year, who has opportunity with pass catching chops that just sits in that RB1 every week because he's catching 6+ passes and he's getting 15 carries in that offense that's going to need to score points. Duke Johnson is one I can easily see being.
That's a good one. That is a good one.
Injury update. Donta Foreman is officially out with bad at football-itis.
Listen, I diagnosed him with that out of college.
Chronic bad at football-itis.
Yeah,
Jeez Louise.
Right, timestamp. What is it? 1:33 p.m. Eastern time. Donta Foreman dead.
Right.
All right. Now we are going to John's favorite part, and it's the hate. Who inside the top 12 running backs is most likely to finish outside the top 24 at their position? And again, don't say injury.
No injury for me needed. You guys already know where I'm going. I'm going with the John Ghana for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, we already hated on him enough in the All-32. We know that we all like Jalen Samuels. I don't think Benny Snell's going to really factor too much into it, but I hate James Conner. If he fell in the second round, early second, I might have to take him, but not where his ADP is at. He's the 7th running back off the board, still been taken in the first round. No, thank you. So James Conner, have fun outside the top 24.
I had Conner too, but you took him.
There's another one that I know. Go ahead, John.
I got 3. I
know all 3 of them.
I think the whole 12 is a good finish. I hate everybody. So Connor, I knew somebody would take him. So my backup was Cook, but now you've thrown this no injury thing at me. So Dalvin Cook can't be dismissed.
Here it comes.
Damian Williams.
There he is.
Fucking bricks. This guy is, 50 carries is his career high. He's 27-ish, no tread on the tires because he's not good enough to even be taken out of the garage. He's going to be outperformed by Darwin Thompson by week 3 and be relegated to his career backup role where he belongs. Damian Thompson, get out of my top 12.
Oh, you merged them
Damian
together.
Williams. I'm so excited about Darwin Thompson. I'm just throwing around Thompson.
You mashed them up. John, I thought if I completed this for you that you clearly would have said Darwin Thompson would be the one outside the top 24 and that Damian Williams would be the one inside the top 12. I thought this was a layup for you to just double down on that.
I didn't want to go too deep, but I do love me some Lat Murray. So
I'm there with you, and I'm glad he got promoted again because we both like Latavius Murray here. And I am not going to pivot any deeper because there's only 12 guys. John named about half of them, and he did take injury off the table. So I also went with James Conner. We are the official Jalen Samuels promotion podcast, and that is not going to change anytime soon. I don't believe that Conner is going to see near the touches on a per game basis that he saw in years past. You can tell me whatever you want. You can tell me about what they've done in the preseason. I never use preseason as a barometer for what teams are going to do in the regular season because what smart team would actually show their opponents what their game plan is for the regular season. I don't know why they used James Conner as much as they did in the preseason, to be totally honest with you, and not sprinkle in Jalen Samuels. unless they're hiding Jalen Samuels and what they really intend to do with this fine, young, upstanding specimen of a new age running back. I love him. He could have been the guy outside the top 24 for me that finishes inside the top 12, and I think that is not with the James Conner injury. I don't think you went far enough, Burke, about how much we do not like James Conner on this podcast. As a football player, he's a tremendous human being, and congratulations for all that he has overcome in his life. But he is not the bell cow back that everyone wants for Pittsburgh. So there we go. Doubling on James Conner. It was actually a tripling, but John decided to pivot. So it's the full James Conner.
Nothing like a good tripling.
I like it. So you said enough. You probably said too much. All right. We're going to continue this crazy train and go to the wide receiver position. So many more options to choose from here. And again, we're same concept. Which receiver outside of the top 24 will finish inside the top 12 in 2019? John?
I went with Robbie Anderson.
Nice.
I think the Jets suck. I think they're going to be trailing a ton. I think there's going to be a lot of garbage time points to be had. And Darnold seems to have a pretty good connection with them so far this preseason and when they played together last year. I think Robbie Anderson has top 12 upside.
Robbie Anderson currently wide receiver 29, and I agree. And Gase has said nothing but positive things about Robbie Anderson, which is difficult for Adam Gase to do. So
Shockingly impossible.
I'm there with you. All right, Robbie Anderson, welcome to the top 12, I guess. Burke, what do you got?
This is going to be, I think it's an easy one. Probably the most potential, even though he's getting up there in age, reinstated. Give me Josh Gordon all day, every day. Patriots are lacking. What do they got? Jacoby Myers is blowing up on the scene. That's how bad they're hurting at the wide receiver position. Not saying he's not talented, but Josh Gordon is head and shoulders above. N'Keal Harry seems to be struggling right now, learning the offense and just getting on the field in general. So with Josh Gordon being reinstated, give me him all day, especially even at the 27th wide receiver off the board in the 6th round. I think he has the best potential personally.
How crazy. Josh Gordon already fringy wide receiver 2 upon reinstatement. That's just how much people want to believe that the old Josh Gordon's going to come walking back through that door of the days of the Cleveland Browns. So
it's a two-parter. It's the want of the old Josh Gordon combined with the Patriots bump, I think.
Yeah, and listen, he was productive the games he did play with Brady, and I don't disagree with anything Burke said. Who's he competing with? I mean, Julian Edelman's in a slot. That's not who he's competing with for targets. N'Keal Harry or Jacoby Myers, rookies? No, thank you. So it's Philip Dorsett? I mean, is that his primary competition?
Right.
In the wide receiver room? I mean, Gordon's, feet on the field, he's going to see 8 targets a game. And from Brady, I mean, that's going to return value as a flex wide receiver. So I'm there with you. I went a little lower, and I haven't been able to talk about him enough. So I'm using this opportunity to do so. Wide receiver, 32, off the board. Allen Robinson of John's ex-Chicago Bears, who he hates. Yeah. He's a year removed. He looked very well. He played very well with Trubisky at the end of the season, and I loved what he did in the loss to my Eagles in the playoffs. Robinson was a man amongst boys. I believe that was the beginning of an established connection between the two. I do like Anthony Miller, but I think they have precious little in the wide receiver room or the tight end room to deal with for those Chicago Bears. So outside of throwing it to Tariq Cohen or David Montgomery, Allen Robinson and Miller are going to absorb a lot of targets this year. Allen Robinson, to me, easily has wide receiver 1 upside. And year 2 of this Nagy offense, I'm buying. And at wide receiver 32, that's just free money. John didn't agree, but that's part of the beauty of this show.
One real quick before we move on is just because of the last preseason game, I know we've all been high on him saying he's going to be at least a wide receiver 2, but it looks like Nick Foles only has blinders on for D.D. Westbrook. PPR formats, I think he could also creep up into that.
He almost got D.D. Westbrook killed.
He did.
I was watching. I think it was the Eagles game. I was watching.
It was. Yep.
Oh my God! Listen, you don't throw someone into tight coverage in the preseason. I mean, Westbrook went after it, but I didn't know he was getting up. To be totally honest with you, I mean,
he popped right up though.
He did.
I liked it.
Give him credit. And I think he even congratulated the guy that hit him. I don't know that I'd ever be that person, like give him the old head pat. I'd be like, it's the preseason, asshole. I'm make the team, but listen up. But I'm there with you. I think that D.D. Westbrook is far and away the alpha in that offense, especially because Marquise Lee can't even get back on the field, and none of those other guys scare me. So he's he's an honorable mention. That's Burke's right in. If Josh Gordon gets suspended again, he's going with D.D. Westbrook. So going to the hate. We're always going to lead off with hate with John. Which wide receiver inside the top 12 is most likely to finish outside of the top 24 at their position?
This was shockingly harder than I thought it would be. It's hard to imagine most of the top 12 disappearing. One of my first thoughts was Thielen because he kind of dragged ass towards the end of last year. And then I was like, but Diggs is also top 12, and I like him less. But then Minnesota has such a narrow fantasy production tree. They're both going to just volume into it, even if they stink with the actual results. So I pivoted to Mr. Big Chest, Antonio Brown, who's lost his mind all year, worried about this helmet shit. I mean, his offseason has been crazy. If anybody is ready to call it a career while they're still on the field, it's going to be him. I wouldn't be no, I don't think anybody would be shocked if he ends up having just an epically horrible season. I don't think he will, but he's my guess out of these top 12 because they're all solid annual fantasy producers for him to fall off a map.
Did you hear that Antonio Brown is going to get a sponsorship deal for his new helmet as well?
He might be a genius, actually. Yeah,
he's the smartest man.
He played that well.
He walked that walk. I mean, it's crazy. And he didn't have to, and he barely had to attend all of training camp.
Yeah.
I mean, he's setting a new standard for how to play this league. He worked his way out of Pittsburgh, and he pretty much controlled the cards the entire all season for those Oakland Raiders. So kudos, AB.
Did you see the picture he tweeted with like the 1960s helmet on? It's fantastic.
That's cool.
He's must-see TV. I am enthralled by Hard Knocks. I can't wait to watch tonight. Burke, again, John named half of the top 12, so
he did.
Have to try and dance around his minefield.
Well, I was glad when he didn't name my guy. I'm going with Mike Evans just because I talked about it earlier. I think it's because of Chris Godwin emerging as the wide receiver one. Not that Mike Evans probably won't see upwards of 100 targets, but he's a one-trick pony to me. No yak, no yards after the catch. I've just seen, the relationship, blossom between Godwin and Winston. So I think would be an easy pick there. There's a couple more, but I'm just liking Evans falling out of that top 12.
Yeah, I'm there with you. I don't see a world in an Arians offense where he falls outside the 24, but I do think he's destined to fall out of that wide receiver one because of the aforementioned Chris Godwin, but I don't think there's a lot else going on. They do have O.J. Howard, but there's no other wide receivers of note in that offense. So to realize that epic fall, when he's been so, consistent as far as touchdown production is concerned, would be the only reason I didn't pick Mike Evans, because we all know how I feel about Chris Godwin. But John started talking about my guy, and I was starting to get a little itchy, and I was like, is he going to talk about him? Because then I really can't. So I went with Adam Thielen as far as wide receiver 10. And for all the reasons John mentioned, is that Thielen volumed his way into production early on and started tapering off late in the season where we saw a little bit more digs. Well, Mike Zimmer got rid of the offensive coordinator because he refused to run it as much as he wanted to. And then he kept Stefanski in there by edict of, you will run the ball as much as I tell you to, and we will pass it as little as humanly possible, even though we paid Kirk Cousins a trainload of money to come in here and be the quarterback. So I think that reduction in the passing game is going to be at the expense of Adam Thielen's targets, especially if Irv Smith gets any significant role in this offense, because that tree will blossom a little bit more. I am of the mindset that Diggs is the better receiver and should be the better fantasy option even in 2019 for those Vikings. So while I think Adam Thielen is a good quality receiver and one hell of a story, he is the one that I can see falling outside of that top 24 just because the volume's not going to be there.
I agree. I'm always on Diggs more than Thielen anyway, so it wouldn't be too hard to convince me.
Yes. So that one, I agreed with John. It's that you start seeing these names and it's, how do you really see a guy having an epic fall? And think the reasons are sound for all three of us. I mean, who knows what Antonio Brown's going to be this year?
Right.
Going to get Chris Godwin. And it depends on which Minnesota receiver you like. They're not going to continue to both put up wide receiver 1 numbers. That's not going to happen again this year in that offense. Zimmer's not going to allow it. So one of them has to fall. And I went with Thielen. Moving on to the tight end position. Love our tight ends at the Fantasy 40. Which tight end, I should probably just do this segment by myself. Which tight end outside of the top 20 will finish inside the top 10 in 2019? And we know this is going to happen. Happens every year.
I'm cool with you just doing it, but there's an obvious answer that I'm sure one of you guys picked. So I'll go all the way to 19 and take Trey Burton out in Chicago. Didn't impress too much last year, but I think he'll build a better rapport with Trubisky. They do have lots of weapons in Chicago, but I mean, without stealing a guy out in Baltimore, I'm going to just go with Trey Burton. I don't really have much to back it up, but looking at these other names, Jordan Reed's head got blasted off again. Greg Olson's foot is floppy, more than floppy. It's like he doesn't even have bones in there. So, yeah, Trey Burton.
Burton, I know this is tough for you, but when I say outside of the top 20, you can't pick the guy that's number 19.
Oh, I thought you said 10. That's my fault.
You continue to astound me. We're gonna get you on. Yeah, but you're just gonna have to stick with them. Interestingly enough, it only goes to 20 on Fantasy Football Calculator with 12 teams, so you kind of have to do a little bit of thinking here. So we're just gonna let you have Trey Burton there as a
Jason Witten. There you go. There's my outside the top 20.
Listen, you don't even believe that. So we're just going to move on before we give any more poor information out to our listeners. John, who outside of the top 20 will finish inside the top 10?
I started this show talking about Raiders volume. Let's close it with Raiders volume. Darren Waller, Gruden's tight end 1, and his OC, is it Greg Olsen?
Mm-hmm.
His tight end 1 typically have a pretty decent production profile. Give me Darren Waller as a super, not sneaky so much as he was a couple months ago, but I think Darren Waller has as good a shot as any to finish in that top 10.
I agree with you, and I can't help but think a lot of this ADP here is just novice drafters, because why are you still taking Greg Olsen in the 13th round, Jimmy Graham in the 13th round? I mean, I don't get it. If you're waiting that long to get your tight end, those aren't the guys that I'm looking at, even in the 13th round. I'm waiting. I'm taking Darren Waller in the 16th round.
And even in redraft, I'm taking Ian Thomas ahead of Greg Olsen. Maybe I'm a dynasty biased guy, but that's where I'm going with Carolina.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. We all like Ian Thomas here. All right, I went with my guy, Dallas Goedert.
Oh,
the Eagles are going to run a shit ton of 12 personnel this year. And we said it can't be injury specific. I believe, oddly enough, that this is a team that can support 2 fantasy relevant tight ends. That being said, I think one of these tight ends is going to realize a noticeable regression in targets. Goddard has looked great in his limited preseason action. Every single report coming out of Eagles camp for him has been that he has exploded in his second season with this team. They are going to find ways to get this kid the ball. He will work his way into 6 to 8 touchdowns this season, and that gets you on the tight end 1 top 10 radar. So I am going with my guy, Dallas Goedert, for the Philadelphia Eagles. Now to the negativity. Which tight end inside the top 10 is most likely to finish outside of the top 20? We went with top 10 because it's a lighter position.
It's just so hard because it's easy to say they fall out of the top 10, but 20 is just so far.
Yes.
The easy one for, I guess, the guy that stands out, I'll just go ahead and go first so you guys can clown me and then do yours. But I'm going with David Njoku. Just too many mouths to feed in Cleveland. Probably can score 5 touchdowns, but I do not see his targets really increasing more than they have in the past. Athletically, he's there. He's got all the intangibles, but just like I said, I mean, Rashad Higgins is starting to emerge. You got Landry, Beckham, Chubb. When Hunt gets back, it's too crowded for Njoku to stay in there for me.
Not going to argue it. You add Odell Beckham to an offense, then you're getting less targets. They might be better targets, so you're going to be less, so he's going to become touchdown dependent. So I'm not going to clown you on it. I think it's entirely possible, and right now he's going as tight end 9, so he qualifies. John, I know you're not going with Njoku. Who you got?
I went with two Walker guys. Ebron was my first answer, but we're going no injuries here. So the injury to Luck sinks Ebron's value. So I'm going to pivot and go with your man, Vance McDonald, currently tight end 8. I don't know if you've seen the quotes from their offensive coordinator, but he's never going to play the full game. That's never going to happen. They're talking about how many snaps have been vacated with Jesse James leaving. The only other tight ends they have there are Xavier Grimble and Zach Gentry, I believe. There might be one other super low-end bum whose name is escaping me. But this offseason, people were really hyping him up. But, I mean, sometimes this coach speak things, people read a little too much into it or think it's not what it's all cracked up to be. They're going out of their way to say, we're not going to give this guy a ton of work. He's not picking up, twice as many snaps with the snaps that have been vacated. I'm just not seeing it.
Zach Gentry, the rookie, right?
Yeah.
He's on the field. But no, I don't disagree. He's a specialist. I mean, he gets hurt every season he plays. So I can understand the OC's suggestion there. Now, interestingly enough, you said that injuries, and I did put that edict on, that injuries can't be the reason. Well, I meant injuries to the player. So it pains me to do it. Eric Ebron at tight end 10 with Jacoby Brissett is not going to happen. I love Ebron. I think he's uber talented. But I really loved Ebron because of what Andrew Luck meant as far as tight end production was concerned. That goes out the window. Who knows what Jacoby Brissett's going to be? Jacoby Brissett made Jack Doyle fantasy viable, but that was just a shitload of dump downs because if he wasn't throwing it to T.Y. Hilton, he was dumping it down to Jack Doyle. So I don't know what Jacoby Brissett means for Eric Ebron, and that scares me. So in redraft, I am not going to be reaching for Eric Ebron in the 8th round as tight end 10, unfortunately. Ouch.
I never thought you'd say that. I mean, the only reason I didn't bring it up is because I fucking own them everywhere, and I don't want to.
Listen, I'm not just giving them away in Dynasty because, like I said, Brissett did hyper target Jack Doyle in his season, in 2016. So there's an opportunity. Maybe he works inside out, and both those tight ends just eat a lot, and it's a pass funnel offense. I don't know, but that entire offense scares me now at Brissett. So that's where I'm going. And again, I just want to move on. I don't want to talk about it anymore because I'm talking negatively about Eric Ebron. So
I can feel the pain in your voice.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad. We got 2 more questions, and these are kind of freestyle questions. So it's not by position, but this is where we're planting flags here. I called the first a bargain bin, and it's who is the one player that will return maximum value at their current ADP. John, let's start with you.
I have a couple, but the one I'll just go the cheapest of the group I wrote down. Justice Hill is going 141st overall, and he seems to be the running back type that Baltimore's wanted to get in there for several years. They thought Kenneth Dixon was going to be that guy. He was getting hurt too much. Prior to that, Justin Forsett kind of filled that role, but Hill's a little undersized, but he's a good runner, can run between the tackles, and he's a hell of a pass-catching back. I wouldn't be shocked at all if he creeps up into that RB2 territory, if he ended up finishing, kind of like we said with Eckler last year, somewhere between 23 to 26, I think is where he could finish, and going off the board at 141 is ridiculous for a team who's planning on, they've said as much. They want to run the ball a ton. They're not going to give Ingram all of that work. Hill's going to get a lot of rushing work, and he's going to be their passing down guy. So I love Justice Hill at 141.
Shame on this ADP for having both Ronald Jones, running back 50, and even Alexander Madison, who I like, is running back 51, above Justice Hill at running back 52.
I hate Ronald Jones.
I mean, Justice Hill doesn't need an injury. Yes, you're right. He's going to be the 1B in this offense, and Ingram's not going to eat as much as they want to run the ball. And Ingram's, I think, 31 years old, so I couldn't agree more on that Justice Hill. But with an injury, Justice Hill's a superstar. Without an injury, Justice Hill could be a flex running back right out of the gate. Yeah. So running back 52, I'm with you. Burke, who do you got?
Andy was he's 195 pounds and squat 565. I just seen that video.
Yeah, it's like a 19-year-old.
Jesus Christ. Mine's a homer pick, but I think value's there. Lots of hype. More hype than hype, and I'm gonna take my boy Michael Gallup out of that bargain bin. It's almost like when you go to the gas station, you got all these weird beers in there for $1. I think I'd steal Michael Gallup there. 52nd wide receiver going in the end of the 11th round. I think, like John said about Justice Hill, I think he could creep into the top 26, and that's doubling up your value you're drafting him at. So I think Michael Gallup's a pretty decent buy there.
I'm glad I pivoted. Gallup was my other option, so I'm glad I went with Hill.
Full disclosure, Michael Gallup was my first option as well. And I pivoted because I was not going to say anything positive about a Dallas Cowboy. But given Amari Cooper's foot issues and the lack of alternative options, I mean, Randall Cobb aside and those tight ends, whoever it may be week to week, Michael Gallup, yeah, he could be a league winner. Easy. And at wide receiver 52, yeah, that's certainly a no-brainer. I went a little higher, and just because it was a guy I wanted to talk about in this episode, and I went with Geronimo Allison, currently a wide receiver 37. Not a screaming value, but still, as a high-end wide receiver 4, he is the wide receiver 2 to own in Green Bay. I still think there is a ton of value to be had in that position, unless we not forget, and we brought it up, I know I have, and I know John has in previous podcasts. In the first 4 games of last season, Geronimo Allison had 19 catches for 289 yards and 2 touchdowns. We extrapolate that out across the bad season for those Green Bay Packers. That's 76 catches, 1,156 yards, and 8 touchdowns, which would be good for 239.6 PPR points, which would have had him as wide receiver 14 in 2018.
Nice.
If he just does what he was doing last year again, those aren't astonishing numbers. That's 5 catches a game, 72 yards, and half a touchdown. This weren't outlier games. He was the second target in an Aaron Rodgers offense, and I think he will be again this year. I think he's more substantiated. It's year 4 for him with Aaron Rodgers than Marquez Valdez-Scantling is. They just lost Equinemius St. Brown. And as much as we like Kumaro, he's never going to be a thing. Jamon Moore, who knows if he even makes the team. And there's nothing else in this offense. Geronimo Allison, he easily can be a high-end wide receiver too, with no injuries.
I think I agree there. Oh, yeah. I like that.
All right. And now we're going to end with the hate. And it's, who is the one player that will bury your season if you draft them at their current ADP? I called these grave diggers. It's a guy that take him where he's currently going. Your team is destined for disaster because you're passing up much better value, and this guy's not going to return. So, John, let's roll with you first.
I actually went with 2 guys. I call this the 2-3 turn end of your team. Pat Mahomes was going 24th, Kerryon Johnson 25th. Don't take quarterbacks early. I don't give a shit if Mahomes does another 50 touchdown year. You're going to get much greater quarterback value later in your drafts. So Mahomes at 24, no thank you, never. And Kerryon Johnson at 25. Between injuries, C.J. Anderson, and just big question marks everywhere in Detroit, give me any of the running backs going right behind him. Fournette, Devonta Freeman, Aaron Jones, Chris Carson, Josh Jacobs, David Montgomery. I think they all have a way higher ceiling than Kerryon Johnson, and with the exception of Fournette missing time for injuries, way higher floors too. I think that turn you can fucking sink. You have that first pick, you take Barkley, and then let's say you come back Kerryon and Mahomes. That looks good on paper, but you are fucked.
Yeah, and this is got to get the right guy too, because you're right. At that turn, you're waiting a long time going the other way. So, Kerryon Johnson falls right in that mixed bag of RB2s. If you went that early in the draft, you likely got one of those high-end RB1s. You can't afford to miss because likely you're going to be a little light at wide receiver, so you need those running backs to carry you. And I do not disagree with you there on Kerryon. I like the talent. I just think C.J. Anderson's going to siphon away. They're talking highly about Ty Johnson. I'm just not that. I'm not there on Kerryon yet. And Pat Mahomes, obviously, don't draft a quarterback that early. It's one quarterback league. Don't do it.
No, that's exactly where I was going. I mean, it's easy. Right here, this ADP has him at 210 overall, and that's not even true. I've seen him go as high as 105, and to 112. I've never even seen him fall to the second round in the three drafts I've done. So, I mean, yeah, it's an easy one, but just to go with John, I mean, the guys going after him, Deshaun Watson, Aaron Rodgers, Baker Mayfield, are all going the beginning of the fifth all the way to the end of like the seventh round. You're getting Drew Brees and Jared Goff and stuff like that. So, I mean, you're missing out on all these wide receivers. You got like Keenan Allen and guys like that who are, you could pick up in those mid rounds, even running backs, just depending on how you want to attack the draft. And
you're talking about the mid-round guys. You could go to the 9th and 10th and get Lamar, Jameis, Kyler Murray, Phillip Rivers, Tom Brady, or Big Ben.
Right. I mean,
you're saving 10 rounds of draft capital.
It's just a no-brainer there. I mean, so that's where I was, and it's kind of bummed John took it, but I 100% agree. I mean, I'm sure you do too, Walker, where we're all on the same page there. So it wasn't anything different, but that's all I had.
No, hey, listen, be consistent. Say the guy that you believe. Mine was Zach Ertz as tight end 3, going to pick 311. Zach Ertz saw the 6th most targets in the entire NFL last year, not at the position, in the NFL. Let's just soak that in for a minute. 156 targets last year. Tops as a tight end position, there was only 5 wide receivers that saw more targets than Zach Ertz did last year. That's what it took to get 116 catches with 1,163 yards and 8 touchdowns. Fantastic season. We were so happy you had him. Still wasn't even the top scoring tight end in the league because Kelsey, was just uber productive on 6 less targets. It was more than 200 more yards and 2 more touchdowns, but that's what Kelsey is compared to Ertz. I talked about Dallas Goedert earlier, being a tight end that I think can be a tight end 1, even without Ertz being hurt. Ertz is going to lose probably 40-plus targets off of his line this season, and that's just going to crater his ceiling because he's a 10 yards per catch guy. That's just what he is. He's not uber explosive. He's reliable, and he's athletic, and he's good. And all that was a product of necessity largely, especially last season. Now we're adding Deshaun Jackson. We got Dallas Goedert in his 2nd season. They're not going to need to target him 156 times. So why are you using pick 311 on Zach Ertz? Why are you using on a tight end at all when we were talking about some of that value that can be had later? There's guys like Chris Godwin at 4.05, Sony Michel at 4.07, even O.J. Howard at 5.07 that I would rather take even at that position. I'm not taking a tight end at 311, but give me Chris Godwin all day over Zach Ertz this year, even Sony Michel a little earlier if I have to reach to get him at the 311. I'm taking those guys over Zach Ertz all day long. I will not own Zach Ertz.
That's one I'm surprised that he's still down there and hasn't crept even more as Sony Michel. Now that we've seen that he is, healthy and he looked explosive on that last run we saw. So, I mean, that's almost like another bargain bin, even in the 4th round, like you were saying. I think, he is high-end running back 1. If, they're pretty efficient in the red zone, the Patriots are. So,
hold on. So you just get on board with that Sony Michel? Because I know John wasn't. And I think when I brought him up in the Patriots, all 32, both of you guys were shitting on him.
Yep, I'm on board.
He's going to be an RB1 this year, guys.
I've seen enough.
He's going to be an RB1.
I don't want anybody in that backfield, and I never do.
I'm a sucker for them Patriots running backs. It's always on the last second.
Going to be amazing this year.
So,
all right, Burke, you said you got one more.
Oh, that was a while ago.
Just read that now. Give me one. I want it. You got to give me something now.
Another guy. I'm trying. James Conner, if you take him in the first round, you could easily bury your season. So I'm just going to go back to the well with James Conner there.
Burke looks around, punches Conner again, just for good measure.
I went with the chalk take, the one that I'm going to keep on. And if he does outperform what I'm saying, I'm going to look like an idiot, but I'm not getting off this hill.
No, hey, fair enough. I'm there with you. We took a shot at him earlier. He was the consensus RB to not take that early. So let's make sure everyone understands how much we are fading James Conner this year. And listen, we weren't able to commit as much time to redraft as that all 32, and life happened and pushed us a little bit deeper. So this was just a quick overall assessment of how we feel about some particular guys at the position in the coming weeks and months. We're going to turn our focus to redraft. We'll start looking at weekly kind of must adds and fades and things of that nature for our subsequent podcasts. So listen, largely dynasty focus in the off season, redraft focus once this kicks off, because even dynasty is just redraft in season with cooler trades. So interested to hear everyone's answers here. And while I was host, I'm turning it over for the outro, because no one can do an outro like Andrew Burke.
Oh, why you got to put me on the spot like that? But everything Walker said, this is probably the more exciting time of the year. We go over the teams week by week, who we need to start and sit, all that great stuff. Lots of big things on the horizon. Then we throw in some fun games here and there, to keep us busy during this redraft season, because it comes at you fast. Next thing we know, we're already going to be talking about our fantasy playoffs and how the hell some guys shit the bed and ruined it for us, and some of these guys that are league winners that you can scoop up off waivers. So make sure you stay tuned, everybody. But once again, we're going to thank our partners who are at the Full-Time Fantasy Network. Like, rate, subscribe on all the platforms. I'm not going to name them today because I've already named them a million times. You guys should know by now, especially if you're listening. But make sure to follow us on Twitter at TheFantasy40. That's going to do it for today. From myself, Andrew Burke, John DeBari, and Matt Walker, we're the Fantasy 40, and we are out.
Ooh, James Conner. Suck it.
Yeah, he did.
James Conner beating.
It was a nice 12 games.